That was Panama's only shot on goal in the whole game. You see the XG for Panama, minimum 0.1.
Yeah.
And I know XG sometimes can be deceiving. All right, Herc, you heard Kasey. You saw the highlight. You said you were gonna need time. Floor's yours. What's your reaction?
Well, I'm just going to use my word. This is pathetic. Listen, we've seen the U.S. men's national team start slow versus Panama. This is the 4th game in a row where they go 0-0 heading into halftime. For whatever reason, the Panamanian attackers, defenders, midfielders, they give the American players a very tough time. And it's one thing to start slow, because Kasey's right. There should have been a sense of urgency. All week we've been hearing about the press. We've been hearing about they're going to take it to the Panamanian players. A Panamanian team that was depleted with absences, whether it's injury, whether it's suspension, whether it's any type of absence. They had their fair share, 6 to 7 players, especially in that back line. And Thomas Christensen brought them out to play. By no means was Panama spectacular. But that's the most worrisome part for this U.S. men's national, because with a little bit of discipline, with a compact line, a block, and transition, they made it very difficult and nervy for the U.S. men's national team. People are going to sit here and say, well, what about the U.S. men's national team absences? I do not care. You have enough talent on paper where you can beat comfortably this version of Panama with their absences. Thomas Christensen and the Panamanian players, my hat's off to them, because they knew exactly how to hurt the U.S. men's national team with very little, just made them uncomfortable. But if you are U.S. soccer, if you are a U.S. men's national team supporter, $6 million a year for you to finally lose this tournament, for you to finally not lift the CONCACAF Nations League. We are now in the Mauricio Pochettino era. And I keep waiting to see what $6 million has brought the U.S. men's national team. And so far, not much.
Well, what did we keep hearing, Mount? We kept hearing that it was, it's just a different feel in camp. It's just more intense. It's more, there's more accountability. And I saw none of that in this match. I didn't see any intensity. I didn't see any urgency to Herc's point. Look, we've all been on a team where we're the better team and the other team knows we can't be progressive. We have to kind of pack it in. We have to wait for our couple moments. So then what do we do to break that down? Sometimes go direct. Go press them at times. Go look for something different. How many times we're watching that second half, it's a pass into the middle, and it's straight backwards. It's then passed wide, and then it's passed around the back to the other side. Very regimented, very slow. Hey, put some big bodies in. Go over the top. Look for second balls inside the box. Shake up that defense a little bit. Instead, everything was so predictable, so slow, and then in the end, you paid the price for a couple errors at the end of the game. You lose concentration because it was so easy, and you pay the price.
There you go. That's the word slow right there. I'm going to go, if I have to describe this performance with just one word, I'm going to go with dull. And here's why I'm saying dull. I see the players for this team, right? And we get to see them every weekend playing for some of the biggest clubs, biggest names in Europe. And Herc has heard this from me so many times. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I'm excited. I'm excited for the U.S. men's national team to have good players, great players, performing at that level with their clubs. That excitement goes away when they come and play for the national team. And it's just a dull performance. Yes, we see some highlights from Christian Pulisic. Yes, we see Weston McKennie going box to box, getting a couple of headers inside the 18, sometimes inside the 6. But other than that, we got very, very little. Honestly, we got time to show you guys a highlight, but there was not really much to show. I mean, credit to our production team that really go deep into the action to try to come up with 4, 5 plays that make sense. Now, we can try to go to the game-changing moment, and we have to agree has to be that Waterman goal in the 94th minute.
Well,
but it also
I'll go before that.
You can go before that? All right, go ahead.
I think the tactical, the lineup and the tactical adjustments, unless there's some reason we don't know about, Giovanni Reyna, unless there's an injury we have no idea about, some sort of discomfort, Giovanni Reyna not playing in this game, forget not starting, not showcasing in this game is a crime. This is a player that when it comes to semifinals, finals of any tournament he has played in with the U.S. men's national team, he produces. And you decide to leave him on the bench? Unless there's something we are missing here, Kasey, this is a travesty.
Well, I'm going to go even deeper on this because I'm going to go even squad selection. Because I'm going to say Tanner Tessman or Zendejas, or I'm going to say Jack McGlynn or Haji Wright, or Brendan Aronson, and so I'm looking at that and I'm going, wait a minute, this was a FIFA tournament. This isn't a friendly where you say, hey, we had some guys in the January camp play against kind of a B team, C team. Now I want to see how they play with some of the other guys. No, this is a FIFA tournament that the U.S. has only won. And your selection seemed a little bit off. And obviously, to Herc's point, I am equally as confused in how Gio doesn't come on in that second half and make a difference. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt until I hear differently. Correct. But because if he's not injured, I have no clue how you don't bring him in.
I'll go back to the $6 million a year. Mauricio Pochettino, who in international football or World Football Club football has won very little. That's a reality. Had an opportunity to win a trophy this week. And while I would love to hear about him scouting dual nationals, I would love to hear about him going out and looking at players in Europe, talking to Gio at Dortmund, Pulisic at Milan, other players, I've not seen that. I have seen YouTube charity matches. I have seen interviews where you're talking about being the best team in the world in the next 5 or 10 years. Did that look like the best team in the world potentially in the next 5 to 10 years?
No,
so
that was nowhere even near the best team in CONCACAF.
I want to see what $6 million can get you. He's one of the highest paid international managers in the game today. This is on the players, absolutely. But the lack of urgency, the player selection, the lack of adjustments, the lack of getting them just anything out of them in the second half, that is also on Mauricio Pochettino, and he should not be absolved from blame here.
But, Herc, what was the interview at halftime? The interview at halftime, Nico Cantora supposedly talked to Pochettino and said that, he was happy with the first half, that they'd created more chances. Look, I'm maybe too honest at times, but I have
That's not a bad thing, Kasey, by the way. That's not a bad thing.
But I have no problem with the coach saying, that was nowhere near good enough in an interview, and say, we know we need more intensity, we need more pressure, we need to be just overall better. I have don't try to blow smoke up my backside and tell me that was a good half, because that first half was, to your point, and I said slow, you said dull, and there was a combination of both. Pathetic came for the total performance, but that first half was anything but good.
Don't you think that, because you guys probably experienced this, it's one thing what a manager says publicly on the microphone, but maybe he has a different message inside the dressing room. Maybe he's going harsh on the players.
Well, I think result in hand, now he would probably go harsh on the players, but that halftime...
Do you think he will?
I'd expect him to do, but that halftime out, honestly, you can't be pleased with what you saw.
Well, absolutely.
You cannot be pleased with what you saw.
Well, what did all the Man U players used to say about Sir Alex? It's called the hairdryer moment, because he's screaming so much at you, your hair feels like it's being hit with a hairdryer. I had managers throwing cups of tea, throwing all cups. At some stage, there's nothing wrong with a manager expressing to his players that that's not good enough, and then the players reacting. How many times have we seen a team have a dull first half, and you're dreaded, Herc. You dreaded going in at halftime because you knew it was coming. You knew you guys were just going to get lit up. And then what did you do? You came out the second half, you win 2-0, and you think back to yourself, we needed that.
Yeah, to Mauricio's point, I hope that is the case. And at halftime and in the post game, there's a different message being sent to the players, because I can guarantee you that Mauricio Pochettino honeymoon era, that's over. That's over.
Well, it's really over. And if it's not, it should be.
It should be. Sometimes, I'm not going to say you need a performance like this, but sometimes a performance
The proverbial
like this,
wake-up call?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Has to be a shake-up moment.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't happen, then you are in big trouble. Let's talk about what one big performance. Taking just a look at the stats, 12 attempts by the U.S. men's national team, 5 shots and goal. How much of that actually makes Orlando Mosquera man of the match, Kasey?
Well, but what did we see from this? We see the shot on target where it hits the post, and we saw a couple headers comfortably into the midsection. Look, I think Mosquera was solid. There was nothing too crazy there, but I didn't see anything spectacular. No,
I'll give man of the match to Thomas Christensen. When Fajardo couldn't give him any more up top, he knew exactly where to go. He put up water.
That was the best save, clearly. Against
very good save by him right there.
But he doesn't strike it well. He doesn't,
Listen, Orlando Mosquera has something in his toolkit.
Yeah.
He plays in Saudi Arabia. He was voted goalkeeper of the month there this last month.
Right.
He's a good goalkeeper.
Yeah, he's a solid goalkeeper.
But this wasn't because he had a monster match.
Correct,
This
100%.
was more on the U.S. men's national team not being able to really make do with what was in front of him. And I give Thomas Christensen a lot of credit. He made that block very compact. He made the field very small. The U.S. men's national team in the first half didn't know how to penetrate that. And then when they sat in a low block in the second half, they had very, very little idea of how to break them down. That's on Thomas Christensen, who continues to prove that he can do a lot with a little. And that is the difference here. He's not a $6 million man, and he had 6 to 7 absences, and he says, you know what? I got to go back to the bases. I got to do something here. And even with all those absences, the first half, they were whipping around the ball, side to side. They had a little bit of possession. Anytime there was a counterattack, you were like, oh, they can hurt the U.S. men's national team. That's what a good coach does.
But Herc, they didn't really. But to your point, it was always kind of there.
Right.
It was always that opportunity that maybe this might be the moment. Well, they waited until the 94th minute to make that moment. And I think that's one of the things that, like any team, when you play for a team, when you know you're playing against a team that has more talent than you. Yeah. And you can't say, okay, we can't play heads up here. We can't just throw the ball out here and you attack and we'll attack. Okay, we got to be a little bit more intelligent about the way we go about this if we think we're going to get a result. And to Herc's point, Christensen comfortably won the coaching battle in that match. Yeah. Comfortably, not even close.
There was a team that knew exactly what they were doing on the field. Panama, even though they lost the possession battle, that really doesn't say much.
Who cares?
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's by design, right?
That's by design. Yeah. I never had the impression that Panama was really in trouble, or that they were performing desperate to try to regain control of the ball. The plan, they were executing according to plan.
There was no level of consistent pressure from the U.S. where they're like, here's 5 minutes of just being barraged. Yeah. It wasn't. It was just like, okay, there's kind of a half chance, a little bit of a moment, and then it just kind of fell flat again for a while.
It happened during the Gold Cup. It happened Copa America.
Yes.
Now it happens in CONCACAF Nations League. It seems like Panama, they've got the U.S. number. 3 wins in the last 4 games. I know the last game the U.S. won that match, Pochettino's first game as the manager of the U.S. men's national team. But, I mean, should we be shocked, surprised by what happened inside SoFi Stadium?
No, you should be shocked at the scoreline. You shouldn't be surprised at how it happened. You shouldn't be surprised, really, that it happened. Because this U.S. men's national team, if you look at their players, who's really in a good moment right now? It's Christian Pulisic, right? Weston McKennie, here or there, I would advocate for. Yes, he was nowhere to be found today. I thought they could never get him into the game. Timothy Weah is what he is. You need to get him in an open space. You're missing players like Anthony Robinson, who's fundamental. Serginho Dest on the other side. Giovanni Reina did not play, and regardless of Gio's lack of minutes in Europe, he's still a player. that needs to play when you have in the U.S. men's national team and in the goalkeeper position. I'm sorry, Case. I do think Matt Turner could have done a lot more there.
Let's go to that.
And maybe a sharper Matt Turner who's in form, playing week in, week out, feels more comfortable and makes that save.
Well, it's one of those things. When you're not playing, you almost want more to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought he kind of just drifted out of position. We saw the shot in the first half at the near post where I thought his positioning was a little off, and it went wide. And this situation, I mean, I'd like to analyze it, or at least, here we're going to get a better look. I would have loved to have seen him that starting position just a little bit over. Maybe he thought he was going to take another touch to his right. I'm not sure. He would have to talk to Matt about that. But look, it's good finish to the far post, but one that we're all talking about that maybe in the past there was an idea that you come up with that save, you take it to extra time, maybe then subs come on and you go and you see this game out. But, maybe just the lack of minutes and consistent game time just had caught up to him a little bit.
So what about Pochettino's decision to start him?
No, I think that's supposed to be the decision you make, right? It's
I'm not worried about that.
Right.
And the problem is someone has to take it from him.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the difficulty is that, you don't have kind of an heir apparent right now, because I think we all thought the same thing when he took over. We were kind of thinking, is there somebody there? And then all of a sudden Matt shows up and it's like, right. Maybe it's not going to be that easy.
Yeah, I guess my biggest issue with Pochettino, the U.S. men's national team today, was that the playmakers in that spine, whether it's Matt Turner, Tim Ream, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, I thought was decent, but that's because we saw so much of him, and that's not a good sign when you see so much of your
defensive
midfield in a game where you're supposed to control. Christian Pulisic, those playmakers were very limited in how they could impact the game. Christian Pulisic had 12 touches in the first half, I believe. Josh Sargent had 8. You're not going to do anything of worth if you can't get your impact players on the ball in important situations in important parts of the field, and that was evident.
So then what do? Then you go a little bit more direct and you win second balls higher up the pitch.
Well, that's the thing, Case. They were losing every second ball to Panama, and Panama never once felt uncomfortable in their situation.
But where's that point then where you say, you know what? We're wide, we're stretched, we're not moving the ball quick enough. They're in a kind of a compact position. Why don't we leave Sargent on, put another big body up there? Because what did we see when Ajiman did break through? You mentioned it. He takes the shot, and there's nobody else anywhere near to follow the rebound.
Yeah.
So how about you stick a couple strikers up there? You're not really getting hit with possession. There could be the odd counterattack that might hurt you. But to have an extra body up front isn't like you're thinking, oh, no, now we're giving up our midfield, because Panama didn't have anybody in midfield.
All right, so let me ask you this. The team is coming after Greg Berhalter's time. Pros and cons, whatever he left after his tenure. When you hire a manager like Mauricio Pochettino, you want to see change. You want to see things work in a different way. How much of a change have we seen from what Greg Berhalter did to what you have seen, Herc, from Mauricio Pochettino so far? Or is it still more of the same?
In terms of what we saw today, let's criticize Mauricio Pochettino. In terms of what we can see with the full men's national team compared to Greg Berhalter, well, he still hasn't had a full squad, and that's a reality. He's not had a Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson at the same time. He's not had Tyler Adams. He's not had all these players at the same time together. So he gets a pass there. But from what I have seen, with the material that he has had, it's not that I've been overly impressed. A tactical wrinkle here or there with Yunus Musa or Anthony Robinson. But to say that this team and the changes are fundamentally different for the better under Mauricio Pochettino, I can't say that today.
I can't see it. I don't see it at all. I mean, what I'd like to see is I'd just like to see urgency. I'd like to see a demand. And we saw that with times with Greg. We didn't see it at times, but now I'm starting to think that it had nothing to do with coaching. And if that's the case, because that's to me is the most worrying.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a tournament like this and you're not running around kicking people and trying to just make something happen. You're just happy to go through the motions because that was going through the motions. I saw that, oh no, here's the last 10 minutes, here's a response, and then let's lose our concentration and concede a goal at the other end. It's like calamity.
One other topic that we discuss a lot leading up to this CONCACAF Nations League was the number 9 spot.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the stats, well, yeah, 12 attempts, 5 of those on goal. Does that make the number 9 question even bigger for Mauricio Pochettino? Because you have injured players, 2 or 3 players that probably would have started before Josh Sargent. But even sometimes with those players, problems still there. How big of a problem is it now, the number 9 spot for the U.S. men's national team?
Well, it's still a problem, and it's the age-old question because the last, reliable 9 you had was Josie Altidore, and when he goes down at the World Cup in 2014, you go to Clint Dempsey, and that was it. And you've really not had a dependable 9 on the U.S. men's national team since. If you go back to the World Cup, the last time to score a goal in the World Cup was Haji Wright, and he's not been a player that's been firmly in this situation since. Before that, it's Brian McBride, the last actual 9 to score a goal in the World Cup. So it's the everlasting question of the 9. But you've never had a pool like this. You have never had a Ricardo Pepi, who's already been sold for $20 million, looking for his next $20 million move. They've been rumored to West Ham, rumored to Liverpool, scoring goals in the Champions League against Liverpool. You've never had a Fowler Balogun who goes for $40 million to Monaco. You've never had a guy like Haji Wright with those kind of tools. Josh Sargent, who's lighting up the championship. There are some quality 9s, and nobody wants to take a hold of this position. Nobody wants to say, it is mine. Everybody keeps leaving the door open. So Mauricio Pochettino, for him, that door is still going to be open.
Well, and what did we see? We came down the depth chart. Ajiman came in, had the opportunity to get the winner. Can't make it happen on 2 occasions. So again, it is the search continues. And obviously, injuries led to the falling down the depth chart. Obviously, there was other opportunities that Sargent didn't have because of injuries. But again, here was an opportunity because of that. And
coming in hot.
And there's really
scored a lot lately.
Yeah, and there's one
games.
chance in that first half that deflects onto the post, and you just think there needs to be more because the other opportunities you saw Weston coming from a deeper position with maybe a soft header, but yeah, there wasn't enough consistency, and I'll also though blame that there wasn't enough balls going in the box as well with enough support going into the box, and that's why in a situation when a team's playing 5 at the back and really clogging that up, leave Sargent on, put Ajiman in with him, give a little bit more presence in there and be a little more direct and see if you can just disrupt
or
things.
Maybe have a player with finesse to his game, a 10 if you will.
Well, look, there's no player in this squad that's better in tight spaces going forward with the ball than Gio Reyna.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the point. I don't know. Look, obviously I hope to God Gio's not injured, but that just leaves more question marks on Mauricio Pochettino, how he doesn't put him in to change the game.